Welcome to today's webinar, the Coding Accuracy Support System Cycle O. I'll be your anchor host, Christina Latour, and we will discuss the upcoming changes with Cycle O, featuring guest speaker Star Black and Liz Flake. But before we begin, just a little housekeeping. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we ask that you place all questions in the group chat. We'll try and address all questions at the end of the webinar. Here is a little information about Anchor. Anchor was founded in 1998. We have over 1,500 product installs and over 65 software products. We provide software solutions for data quality, postal compliance, mail processing, and document design. We are actively engaged in shaping our industry through participation and leadership in MTAC, AMI, Postcom, and numerous local PCCs. In addition, we provide 24/7 technical support. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Star Blackwood. Star is the manager of the Address Technology Group for the National Customer Support Center in Memphis, Tennessee. She started with the Postal Service in 1987 as a contractor, shortly after graduating with her degree in computer science. Star considers one of her greatest accomplishments is her family, which includes her husband, Hank, 4 grown children with spouses, and 8 wonderful grandchildren. Okay, ladies, take it away.
Thank you, Christina, for the introduction. We look forward to sharing this new CASS Cycle O requirements with your customers. I want to take an opportunity to introduce Liz Flake. I asked her to join because a couple of the efforts are being driven by her group. Liz has been with this Postal Service organization, the National Customer Support Center, for 24 years. 4 years as a career employee. She has extensive knowledge of a lot of our products and services, which include prior CASS cycles and even this CASS Cycle O. Also, all of our change of address products and services. And currently, she is the manager of the Address Quality Programs team, which is responsible for our AMS database. So you'll hear from Liz a little bit later. As you all probably know, CASS is a certification process that's developed in cooperation with the Postal Service and the mailing industry to try to improve Zip plus 4 codings on all of your mail pieces. In the past, it used to be that we did a yearly certification, but as you all know, we haven't done a CASS certification in some time. The current CASS cycle that's in place is CASS Cycle N, which was in 2011. So in 2018, we introduced CASS Cycle O and have been working to get that deployed. As always, we're looking for ways to promote address quality, reduce undeliverable mail, make it easy for our customers to use with an ease of implementation. And the requirements are always things that we feel like would benefit not only the Postal Service, but the vendors and the mailers as well, and the recipients of this information. Here's just a list of the requirements, and we're going to go into more detail about each one of those. The first one is there's a flag in our AMS data that identifies zones, deliveries, or post offices that only provide P.O. Box style mailings. And so the value of that, and we give an example at the bottom where Gibson, Tennessee 38338 only has P.O. Box delivery. And so this information will give you the information as you're accepting information from customers so that you can prompt them for the actual P.O. Box versus their street address, which they may provide to you. 5-digit zip validation basically just tells you the DMM requires that the city, state, and zip code match. And so this is a new requirement to provide that information so that you know whether that requirement's being met or not for pre-sorted mail. These components here are products that have been available for several years. In the past, we haven't required the use of them, but with CASS Cycle O, we're going to require that the software provides the information back for these. And as you can see, the descriptions here, the DNA is a door not accessible, meaning that the carrier cannot physically get to the building, to the residence or the building. No secure location. That means that if you're delivering a package, there's really no good place to leave it at. Non-delivery days, that's for situations where you have a business address, for example, that isn't open on Saturdays or Sundays. So you may want to manage your mailings to those addresses based on those delivery days, because there's a chance that it either would be delayed or it may get returned to you. And then P.O. Box Throwback is a flag that tells you that the customer has opted to get P.O. Box delivery for their address. And as I understand it, Anchor probably has some of these things already implemented in their software, and they can provide that information. The No Stats Reason code is something that's already in place in CASS Cycle N. With CASS Cycle O, we added a new flag that just basically indicates that the address has an incorrect secondary number or it's missing a secondary number, and one is required. So that's what that new flag provides back to you. DPV codes, these have been in place for years. We just basically were asked by the industry to clarify the definitions of them. As you can see, the Y, D, and blank stayed the same as far as their definitions. And S and N, we basically provided some clarification based on what was requested from the industry. Enhanced DPV codes, again, the industry asked for additional information. And so on that, the status of the address. So in this case, the R, you'll notice that we tell you that the address is a phantom route, meaning that if you get that route back on an address, the Postal Service does not deliver to that address. We deliver to a different address. And so that was important for, some of our mailers, that they knew that information. The enhanced DPV codes, they provide a lot of the same information as the previous DPV codes, but as a transition, the industry asked that we set up a new code so that mailers could easily transition over to the new enhanced codes. We also, again, working with the industry, we redefined some of the footnote codes. And I'll go into a little bit more. And you can see on this table that there's several new codes. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with each one of those in the next slide. So C1 previously was combined with CC, but we separated them so that it's clear what the issue is with the address. Basically, if the address has invalid secondary number and one's required, then we'll return a C1. Previously, that was combined with the CC footnote. IA is a new product that was being discussed with the Postal Service. It's called Informed Address, and that's basically where a customer is given they're given a specific address. It's not the physical address, and that way it protects their actual location. Because the rule is that mailers should not present these addresses into CAS certified software, but the industry asks that we return a code. So if those addresses are processed, that we can tell the mailer that why we didn't match that address. And this project has been put on hold, but you can find more information out on our Postal Pro website that describes what this product is. TA is a new footnote code that basically describes or tells you that we used the trailing alpha. We had to separate the trailing alpha from the primary number to make a match. PB is used for when a resident or business has chose to receive delivery through a P.O. box. And so using that information, you can prompt for the P.O. box. And then again, R7 tells you that the address is a phantom carrier, and the address is not one that the Postal Service actually makes mail delivery to. CMRA, that's basically, we clarified some of the rules around CMRAs to make sure that they aligned with what's in the DMM requirements. Previously, when we had this situation, and what's happening here is that we have a delivery point without secondary that's a valid address, but we also have secondary numbers that are valid. And in the past, when you presented that address without that secondary, we would say it wasn't valid. This new rule is going to match those for you so that they're not rejected. SweetLink is a product, again, that's been part of software for many years. And the current policy says that you don't have to append the SweetLink information to your mail piece. With CASS Cycle O, you must return the valid secondary information with the correct 11-digit barcode appended to the address. Military addressing, we've had military addressing in our database for years, and software's been able to match it. The military has requested two other formats, and it's UMR, Unit Mailroom, and OMC, Official Mail Center. And so you can see a couple examples down there of what those look like. And so the CASS requirement is going to be that the software be able to recognize those addresses and match them to our AMS data correctly. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Liz. Her team, like I said, is responsible for the AMS database, and they've been driving this project and the next one.
So for cross-state, AMS has situations in it for addresses that actually where a customer, I just kind of talk about a little bit about what cross-state really means. There's customers that live in one state, but their mail gets delivered by a post office that's in another state. And this has been going on for years, since probably I forget how many years back it goes, but there's about 6,300 addresses that fall in this situation. And like the example that you're seeing online is this particular customer actually lives in South Dakota, but they're forced to use the last line for Iowa because that's where their post office is. So about a year or so ago, there was this One State, One Address Act that was proposed by a senator, where it would actually show the physical location of where the customer resides. So it causes problems for the customers that live in these states. Identity, they don't actually live in Iowa, but everything on their stuff says Iowa. So it's very frustrating to customers. So with CASS Cycle O, we're going to actually add into the AMS, the database. We're going to add these in, and we've come up with a way in the software that they'll be able to identify these for these 6,300 customers that have this problem, and we will be able to resolve it for them. So the software will start outputting the correct city and state for the customer. It'll still have the same zip code. It won't change any of the 11-digit on the mail pieces. They'll still have the same code to the same 11-digit, but it'll give the customer the identity that they're looking for. The next thing that we're going to do is total DPS. I don't know, several years, I want to say it goes back to probably 97 or so, that we had put in rules about DPS on how we, did the sequencing and how we calculated it, because your delivery point is actually calculated by the software. And there was rules that we put in CASS to do that. Well, what we've discovered over the last years is that some of the records in AMS, just because of how the rules are, they have a collision. They cause a collision. They come up with the same delivery point. And we took a deep dive in that to see how could we make improvements. And we've come up with a solution called total DPS. And we think it's going to resolve most of the issues that we have with collisions. It's going to certainly reduce them. It's the benefits to it. It's going to increase the informed delivery ability, improve delivery point sequencing, It's going to enhance the line of travel pre-sort. It's just got so many features that it's going to help. And we're going to target addresses. It's not going to impact every address. Most of the addresses that you run through will still have the same delivery point as they had before. But it was going to target things like rural route, highway contract, box numbers that have trailing alphas or trailing fractions, or street addresses that have trailing alpha and trailing fraction and street secondary. So they have a secondary on a street record. So we're just looking for ways to help. We do hear from a lot of customers that can't sign up for informed delivery where they can see their mail that would really like for us to resolve this. And it helps the Postal Service with the sequencing in the mail. So I'm going to turn it back over to Star.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, we did mention CASS Cycle O in 2018, and unfortunately, several things have caused some delays in that happening as we expected. But what you see on the screen is the last industry alert that was published, and what it says is that CASS Cycle O is rescheduled for a new implementation date of August 1st of 2023. And then CASS Cycle N will be extended to July 31st, 2023. What we did, Postal Service has agreed to, is that software vendors will have the ability to deploy these enhancements in their software as part of their CASS Cycle CASS Cycle N software. So I believe Anchor is actively trying to figure out how to fit that into their release cycle. So you should see the benefits of that soon. So, and as always, all the CASS information is available on our Postal Pro website, and here's a list of items or documents that are out there, and the link to the Postal Pro website where you can find this information. Okay, and as always, feel free to reach out to myself, or we have a CASS support team that can answer your questions, and their emails listed down there also.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Star and Liz. That was an informative webinar. Currently, there are no questions in the chat, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. If you do come up with questions, please feel free to email us at support@anchorcomputersoftware.com or reach out on our website at www.anchorcomputersoftware.com. Thank you again, Liz and Star.
Thank you all for listening and let us share this information.